Master this, and nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. There is one thing, when mastered completely, that makes you genuinely, permanently, philosophically immune to being hurt by anyone or anything. Not numb, not armored, not the cold, distant, emotionally sealed version of strength that broken people sometimes mistake for power. Genuinely immune. In the way that the Stoics meant when they described the philosopher who had done the work, the real work, the daily, honest, philosophically rigorous work, and who had arrived at a place where the behavior of other people, the cruelty of circumstances, the loss of things once valued, none of it could reach the deepest part of them and do what it used to do. Remove them from themselves. That is what hurt actually is at its root. Not the pain of loss or difficulty. The Stoics never pretended that life is painless, but the specific experience of being removed from yourself, of being destabilized, of finding that your sense of who you are, what you are worth, and whether the world is safe has been shaken by something that came from outside you. That experience, that removal from the self, is what mastering this one thing prevents. Permanently. For anyone willing to do the work. Today we are going inside that one thing. We are going to name it precisely. We are going to understand why it works. We are going to go through exactly how the Stoics built it. And we are going to give you the specific practices that make it genuinely yours. Not as a concept you understand intellectually, but as a capacity you possess in the actual moments when you need it most. If you are new to this channel, welcome. We explore Stoic philosophy and human psychology at the deepest level and bring both directly into the real texture of your life. Subscribe right now and hit the bell notification. We release these videos regularly, and every single one is built for people who are serious about understanding themselves and building something that cannot be taken. Subscribe now. Let us begin. What the one thing actually is. The one thing is this. The complete, genuine, daily practiced mastery of your own inner narrative. Not positive thinking. Not the replacement of negative thoughts with positive ones. Not affirmations or visualizations or the construction of a more flattering story about yourself that requires constant maintenance because reality keeps contradicting it. The mastery of the inner narrative is something entirely different and entirely more powerful than any of those things. And understanding exactly what it is requires going into the Stoic framework that makes it the most important single capacity a human being can develop. The Stoics identified, across centuries of careful observation of human psychology, one consistent pattern in every experience of being hurt. Every single one, regardless of the circumstances. Regardless of the severity, regardless of whether the hurt came from a person, a situation, a loss, or a failure. The pattern is this. Between the event and the pain, there is always a narrative, a story the mind tells about what the event means. And it is not the event that produces the hurt. It is the narrative. This is the most important psychological insight the Stoics ever produced. And it is the one that modern cognitive psychology, after decades of independent research, has confirmed with a precision that the Stoics themselves would have recognized immediately. The event is neutral. This sounds extreme. It is not. It is precise. The event, what actually happened, stripped of every interpretation, reduced to the bare observable fact, carries no emotional charge on its own. The person said the words. The relationship ended. The opportunity did not materialize. The loss occurred. These are events. The hurt comes from the narrative. From the story the mind builds on top of the event in the fraction of a second between occurrence and experience. The story that says, "This means I am not enough. This means I am not safe. This means the world is hostile to me specifically. This means I was wrong to hope. This means I am alone." Those stories are not facts. They are interpretations. They are the mind's automatic translation of neutral events into personal verdicts. And those verdicts, accepted without examination, believed without challenge, internalized without the philosophical scrutiny they deserve, are what hurt is made of. Mastering the inner narrative means developing the capacity to intercept that translation, to stand in the gap between the event and the story, to examine the story before accepting it, and to replace the automatic, distorted, hurt-producing narrative with one that is more accurate, more useful, and more aligned with the genuine truth of who you are and what the event actually means. That mastery is the one thing, and nothing and nobody can hurt you when you genuinely possess it. Why most people never master it? Before we go into how to build it, we need to talk honestly about why most people, even people who have heard versions of this idea before, never fully master it. Because the obstacles are real, and understanding them is the first step toward moving through them. The first obstacle is speed. The narrative construction that produces hurt happens faster than conscious thought. By the time you are aware that you are hurting, the narrative has already been built, accepted, and internalized. The story has become the reality, and questioning it from inside the reality it has constructed feels almost impossible. This is why the Stoics emphasize daily practice so consistently, because the capacity to intercept the narrative is not built in the moment of hurt. It is built in the hundreds of small moments before the big one arrives. In the daily practice of examining small impressions, small frustrations, small anxieties, small moments of automatic reaction, until the examination becomes fast enough and natural enough to happen in real time. The second obstacle is identity. For many people, the hurt narrative is not just an interpretation of a specific event. It is a confirmation of a story they have been telling about themselves for years, sometimes decades. The person who says the unkind thing is not just saying an unkind thing. They are confirming, or so the inner narrative insists, what you have always secretly feared about yourself. The relationship that ends is not just ending. It is proving, or so the story goes, what some part of you has always believed about your lovability. When the hurt narrative is connected to a deep, long-running story about the self, challenging it requires more than intellectual examination. It requires the kind of philosophical courage that looks honestly at the deepest beliefs you hold about yourself and asks whether they are true, whether they were ever true, whether they deserve the power they have been given. The Stoics called this the work of self-knowledge, and they understood that it is the most demanding and the most important work available to a human being. The third obstacle is habit. The untrained mind has been running its automatic narrative construction for so long that the pattern has become deeply grooved. The specific stories it tells in response to specific types of events have been told so many times that they feel like facts rather than interpretations, like perceptions rather than constructions. Breaking a habit this deep requires what the Stoics called ascesis, deliberate, consistent, daily training. Not willpower applied in moments of crisis. Patient, consistent, philosophical practice applied in ordinary moments until the new pattern is as deeply grooved as the old one. Understanding these three obstacles, speed, identity, and habit, prepares you for the practices that address all three. Because the Stoic framework for mastering the inner narrative is not a single technique. It is a comprehensive system. And that system works. The 5 Stoic practices for mastering the inner narrative. Practice 1, the daily narrative audit. The first practice is the foundation of everything else. And it is the practice that most directly addresses the obstacle of habit, the deeply grooved automatic narratives that have been running without examination for years. Every evening, conduct a narrative audit of your day, not a review of events. A review of the stories you told about the events. In the moments of frustration, anxiety, disappointment, or hurt that occurred during the day, what story did your mind automatically generate? Someone was short with you in a meeting. What was the automatic narrative? They do not respect me. I am not valued here. I said something wrong. Each of these is a story, and each of them can be examined. Write the event on one side of a page. Write the automatic narrative on the other. And then ask the Stoic question that changes everything. Is this story the only possible interpretation of this event? Almost never is it. The person who was short with you in the meeting might have been dealing with a crisis you knew nothing about, might have been in physical pain, might have been responding to a completely different situation that had nothing to do with you. The event is real. The narrative that made it personal is a choice. An automatic one, but a choice. The daily narrative audit builds two things simultaneously. The habit of noticing the narrative, of seeing it as a narrative rather than as reality, and the habit of questioning it, of treating it as a hypothesis rather than as a fact. These two habits, built through daily practice over months, begin to slow the automatic construction. The gap between event and narrative widens. The examination becomes faster and more natural. And the narratives that used to land with the full weight of perceived truth begin to arrive with a kind of transparency that makes them genuinely easier to question in real time. This is the foundation. Build it first, build it daily, and build everything else on top of it. Practice 2, the Stoic reauthoring. The second practice builds directly on the first and takes the narrative examination one step further. It is the practice the Stoics called the application of the ruling faculty, the rational, examining, wisdom-capable part of the self, to the specific narratives that have been producing the most consistent and the most significant hurt. The reauthoring practice works like this. Take the narrative that has been producing the most pain in your life right now, the story that keeps running, the interpretation that keeps landing, the automatic translation of a category of events into a specific verdict about yourself or about the world. Write it down with complete honesty, not the sanitized version, the actual story the mind is telling. I am not lovable. I am not capable. The world does not want what I have to offer. The people I care about always leave. Whatever it is, write it completely, and then apply 3 Stoic questions to it with the full philosophical seriousness they deserve. First, what is the evidence for this story? Not the feeling of evidence. The actual, specific, verifiable evidence that this narrative is an accurate description of reality. Second, what is the evidence against it? The specific, verifiable experiences and facts that the automatic narrative has been ignoring or discounting because they contradict the story it is committed to telling. Third, what would a genuinely wise, genuinely compassionate, genuinely honest person, someone who knew you completely and wanted only the most accurate possible understanding of your situation, say about this story? The answers to these 3 questions almost always reveal the same thing: that the automatic narrative is a distortion, that it has been emphasizing specific evidence and ignoring contradicting evidence with a selectivity that no genuinely honest examination would permit, that the story is less true than it feels, often significantly less, and from that honest examination, the reauthoring becomes possible. Not the replacement of a negative story with an unrealistically positive one. The replacement of a distorted story with a more accurate one. A more accurate story about what the event actually means. About what you are actually capable of. About what the world is actually like in its full, complex, neither hostile nor perfectly friendly reality. That more accurate story is the one that does not produce automatic hurt. Not because it is comfortable, because it is true, and truth, even when it is difficult, does not produce the specific kind of hurt that distortion produces. Because the hurt that distortion produces always contains, underneath the surface pain, the anxiety of a narrative that does not quite fit the full reality it is supposed to be describing. Practice 3, the practice of depersonalization. The third practice is the one that most directly addresses the specific experience of being hurt by other people. And it is the one that, once genuinely built, changes the experience of interpersonal difficulty more dramatically than almost anything else in the Stoic toolkit. The Stoics called it the withdrawal of the personal interpretation. Modern psychology calls it depersonalization, in the healthy sense of removing the automatic assumption that other people's behavior is a referendum on your specific worth. The practice is this. Every time someone says or does something that triggers the hurt narrative, you apply one question before the narrative fully forms. Is this actually about me? Not rhetorically, genuinely, with the full philosophical curiosity of someone who actually wants to know the answer rather than someone who has already decided that the answer is yes. Marcus Aurelius began every morning by reminding himself that the difficult people he would encounter that day were operating from their own wounds, their own limited perspective, their own unexamined assumptions about the world, not from a clear, accurate, fully informed assessment of him specifically. This morning preparation, this deliberate, philosophical preloading of a more accurate framework for interpreting other people's behavior, meant that when the difficult person arrived, he was already equipped with a more useful question than the automatic one. The automatic question is, what does this say about me? The Stoic question is, what does this say about them? About their current state? About their level of development? About the pain or the confusion or the distorted perception that is producing this behavior? The answer to the Stoic question almost never produces hurt. It produces understanding, sometimes compassion, occasionally the clear recognition that the behavior says nothing useful about you and everything revealing about the person producing it. Depersonalize, not as a defense mechanism, as a genuine, philosophically grounded, regularly practiced reorientation toward the more accurate interpretation of other people's behavior. And watch how much of what used to hurt simply stops landing. Practice 4. The construction of the unassailable inner standard. The fourth practice is the deepest and the most transformative of all 5. It is the one that addresses the root cause of vulnerability to hurt rather than the symptoms. And it is the one that the Stoics considered the master practice of the examined life. It is the construction of a genuine, deeply held, honestly built internal standard for your own worth. One that is not derived from other people's assessment of you and therefore cannot be shaken by their withdrawal of that assessment. Most people's sense of worth is primarily external. It is built from the accumulated assessments of parents, teachers, peers, partners, colleagues, from the social environment's ongoing evaluation of their performance, their appearance, their achievement, their compliance with whatever the current standards of worthiness happen to be. And because it is primarily external, it is permanently vulnerable to the external. The withdrawal of approval is the withdrawal of worth. The critical assessment is a threat to the foundation. The rejection is not just a disappointment. It is an attack on the deepest structure of the self. The Stoics built their inner standard on something that could not be externally withdrawn. On virtue. On the daily, honest, philosophical assessment of whether they were living in accordance with their own deepest values, with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, rather than with whether the external world was applauding the performance. Marcus Aurelius returned to this standard constantly in the Meditations. Not, did people approve of what I did today? But, did I do what I genuinely believed was right? Did I act with the quality of character I am committed to expressing? Did I bring genuine virtue to the circumstances I encountered? Those questions can only be answered from inside. They cannot be answered by other people, and therefore the standard built on them cannot be shaken by other people. The practice is to build that standard deliberately, through the daily character audit, through the honest examination of your own values and whether your behavior expresses them, through the gradual, consistent, patient construction of a self-knowledge so genuine and so deeply held that the external assessment, however critical, however harsh, however sustained, simply does not reach the foundation. Because the foundation is not where the external assessment can touch. Build that foundation, one day of genuine honest self-examination at a time. and watch the vulnerability to hurt diminish, not because you have stopped feeling, but because what you are feeling is no longer contingent on what the world is saying. Practice 5. The daily practice of equanimity in small things. The fifth practice is the one that makes all the others sustainable, and it is the one that the Stoics understood as the training ground for everything else. The place where the capacity for mastery is built before it is needed in the situations where it matters most. It is the daily, deliberate practice of equanimity in small things. Every day, ordinary life presents dozens of small opportunities for the hurt narrative to run. The traffic, the unkind comment, the plan that did not work, the expectation that was not met, the small slight, the minor disappointment, the brief moment of feeling overlooked or undervalued or misunderstood. Most people let these small things run automatically. The narrative fires, the mild hurt registers, the mood shifts slightly, and then the next small thing arrives, and the same process repeats. Dozens of times a day, wearing down the inner resources, establishing the habit of automatic narrative acceptance so deeply that when the large thing arrives, the genuinely significant hurt, the real loss, the serious blow, there is no practiced capacity for examination to bring to it. The Stoics understood that equanimity is built in small moments, that the practice applied consistently to minor irritations builds the capacity that will be available for major ones, that the examination of small automatic narratives develops the speed and the naturalness that makes real-time examination of large ones possible. The daily practice is simple. Every small frustration, every minor disappointment, every brief moment of mild hurt, you apply the one-breath pause. You name the automatic narrative. You ask the one Stoic question, and you choose, deliberately, a more accurate interpretation. Small, consistent, daily, building the capacity in ordinary moments that will be genuinely available in extraordinary ones. This is how the mastery is built, not in dramatic moments of philosophical crisis. In the quiet, unremarkable, consistent daily practice of examining the small narratives that constitute the ordinary texture of a human life. One small thing at a time, every day, until the examination is as natural as the narrative, until the questioning is as automatic as the acceptance used to be, until nothing and nobody can hurt you. Not because you feel nothing, but because you no longer automatically believe the story the hurt is built from. What mastery actually feels like. I want to close the main content of this video by describing what genuine mastery of the inner narrative actually feels like. Because I think without this, the practices can sound like they are asking you to become less human, less feeling, less genuinely present in the full emotional landscape of a real life. They are asking for the opposite. When the inner narrative is genuinely mastered, when you have built the capacity to stand in the gap between event and story, to examine before accepting, to choose the accurate over the automatic, the experience of being alive becomes more vivid, not less. Because a significant portion of the emotional energy that was being consumed by automatic hurt-producing narratives is now available for genuine experience, for genuine feeling, for the emotions that arise when you are actually present in what is happening rather than trapped in the story the mind has built about what is happening. It feels like space, like there is room inside yourself that used to be perpetually occupied by the low-level noise of hurt and its management. Room for genuine curiosity, for genuine connection, for genuine engagement with the actual complexity of the actual world rather than the simplified, distorted, automatically narrativized version of it. It feels like solidity, like the ground beneath you is genuinely stable in a way it was not before. Not because the world has become safer, because you are no longer treating every difficult event as a threat to the foundation of your self-worth. And it feels like the specific quality of freedom that the Stoics described as the highest achievement available to a human being. The freedom of the person who is genuinely, philosophically, durably at home in themselves, whose inner life is not contingent on the behavior of the world, whose peace is not a hostage to other people's choices. That freedom is real. It is built through exactly the practices we have gone through today, and it is available to every person willing to do the daily, honest, philosophically grounded work of mastering the one thing that makes it possible. The inner narrative. Yours. Finally, there is one thing, when mastered completely, that makes you genuinely, permanently, philosophically immune to being hurt by anyone or anything. The complete, genuine, daily practiced mastery of your own inner narrative. Not the suppression of feeling, not the performance of invulnerability. The genuine, stoically grounded, daily practiced capacity to stand in the gap between what happens and the story you tell about what happens. To examine that story before accepting it. To replace the automatic, distorted, hurt-producing narrative with one that is more accurate, more useful, and more genuinely yours. The daily narrative audit that builds the habit of noticing. The reauthoring practice that examines and replaces the deepest distortions. The depersonalization that withdraws the automatic personal interpretation from other people's behavior. The construction of the unassailable inner standard built on virtue rather than external approval. And the daily practice of equanimity in small things that builds the capacity for genuine mastery in large ones. 5 practices, 1 mastery. And on the other side of that mastery, the freedom that the Stoics pointed toward in everything they wrote and everything they lived. The freedom of the person who cannot be removed from themselves, who cannot be hurt in the way they used to be hurt, who meets the world, all of it, including the difficult and the unkind and the genuinely painful parts, from a place of genuine, philosophically grounded, durably stable inner solidity. That person is not a myth. They are the natural result of this practice. Done daily, done honestly, done with the full philosophical seriousness that genuine mastery requires. If this video gave you something real, if it named the one thing clearly enough that you now know exactly what you are building and exactly how to build it, please share it with someone who has been hurt too many times by the same kinds of things, with someone who is ready to stop being at the mercy of other people's behavior. Leave a comment below telling me which of the 5 practices you are starting with and what mastering the inner narrative would change in your specific life. I read every single comment, and I genuinely mean that. Subscribe to this channel right now if you have not already. Hit the bell notification. We release deep Stoic content regularly, and every video is built for people who are serious about the examined life. 3 seconds. Subscribe now. Nothing and nobody will ever hurt you the same way again. Not because the world becomes kinder, because you become the master of the only story that has ever actually mattered. Your own. Thank you for being here. Take care of your minds. See you in our next video.